Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and welcome back to Goosejunkies. Thank you so much for supporting our first episode. We're glad to be back here for episode 2. We have a lot to discuss because the first 5 episodes of the new Disney Plus Goosebumps show have just dropped this past week. We're getting ready for episode 6 as of tomorrow. We're all jazzed and hyped. And the panel here, I'm so thankful for. They have come on to discuss these first 5 episodes. We're also going to discuss some things that we like from the old, some things we like from the new, and kind of bounce off that. It's kind of a loose thing, but we're going to see where it goes. And then we're going to end off the video talking about the new Are You Afraid of the Dark versus Goosebumps War. So stay tuned for that. Now, I want to pass it around and introduce you all. We have a special guest tonight, Becca Sandergaard.
Oh
I want to
wow.
welcome you here.
Crazy.
If you don't know, y'all, Goosejunkies, I think, was actually named by Becca. Becca,
Did we?
me,
No,
Becca,
we
Spongy,
all
and
did.
yeah, we
Yeah.
all did. But Becca, it's really nice to see you. I haven't chatted with you in a long time,
Yeah.
and
It's
I
been
hope
a
that you get to
while.
come on more often than
Yeah.
not.
I would love to jump back into this as side videos because I think over the 2 years, 3 years since we were doing this, I found myself exponentially getting more into the realm of like I've been to a few film festivals so like since then, and I'm at the point where I've kind of become a critic of sorts of art and stuff. So like I would love to totally jump on all the time now as a way to do that just because I'm like leaning into that realm. um but it's crazy to think that, yeah, 2 years ago we were gonna do this podcast, but then kind of the hype around Goosebumps died, and then now it's actually a thing.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
crazy.
So yeah, better late than never, right?
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and the next person, we have Spongy444. It's always an honor to have you on, Spongy. Uh, Glad to see you again. How are you
Yeah,
doing tonight?
yeah, I'm doing all right. Definitely
Good.
interested to see what we get into to the front discussion.
I know you have a lot to say. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Next, we have Alex, aka Alejandro from Goosebumps for Dummies. How are you doing tonight, Alex?
I'm doing great.
Oh yeah, just looking at your Goosebumps collection makes me jealous every time. Up next, we have BD Horror. Say hi to everyone, BD Horror.
Yo, yo, it's Victoria Justice's future husband and Billboard's top 100 Goosebumps reviewer. How are y'all doing tonight?
And last but certainly not least, we have Minnesota Goosebumps fan. How are you doing tonight, Minnesota?
Pretty good. My name is Bruce. You can call me Soda or Bruce. Yeah. Not much to say, but I'm super excited to do this. Thank you all for the support on the last one.
All right. So, I guess we got to get into it because we have a lot to unpack. We have 5 episodes. Five episodes. And, you know, I kind of want to start here because I think it might be a good thing just to open the discussion. Going back to the trailers and when y'all saw these trailers, right? Did y'all have certain expectations going into this show?
Yeah, I think we all did. I would say, at least on my end, I think the show turned out the way I thought it was going to be, and I don't have a problem with that. It was exactly because I was saying this in my video. I remember in 2021 or 2020, whenever that article came out where they said we're doing a more mature Goosebumps, I knew from the beginning that this is what we were going to probably get. And I thought the trailers were pretty interesting. I didn't think they were stellar, amazing, but I was like, okay, this looks fun though, and it was fun. At least like I got what I thought I was going to get.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah, it did insinuate that it's going to be a more adult version of Goosebumps, and I think it did. We all watched it, and I think it did kind of deliver that.
Yeah.
Well,
Anybody else want to
or,
chime in on their expectations from the trailers or anything?
yeah, it could be reputation. Because the whole mature thing is not. Like, trailer definitely showed a little more spooky, but I thought just having hype work and being more darker will work at the end. I'm not expecting the stuff they actually do get into. So that's right in that way.
I'm actually like pretty much on point with you there. I was not expecting them to like, especially go mature in terms of dialogue the way they did. I was caught off guard. I was like, oh, they're making some sexual jokes. Whoa. But then, you get used to it. But it's kind of like a knee-jerk reaction at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do find some of it a bit try hard. Some of it being like, oh, they at that and that little.
What about y'all three? BD Horror, Minnesota, Dummies. What did y'all think, expectations-wise, with the trailer?
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sure. I mean, first teaser drops, I guess is basically the first part since the trailer, like the actual one, got taken down like a few hours after. But yeah, first teaser drops. I thought, whatever. Trailer drops. I thought it was kind of cringe. I'm sorry to anybody who likes him, but I hate rap. It's just my thing. So I didn't like the Goosebumps song playing in the background. And yeah, I mean, I didn't think it looked great, but I was still excited to see what it had to offer. And yeah, very happy that I watched it because, spoiler alert, I loved it.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Alex, BD,
Go ahead, Alex.
crickets. Okay, all right. We can cut it out and then just move on to, I guess, episode 1. I don't know who I want to throw this off to first, but I'm going to throw it off to Bruce first, I think. What was your impression on the first episode, Say Cheese and Die?
All right. Now, this is going to be controversial as heck. So, I thought that the first minute or two with the backstory thing was fantastic. I loved it. The camera cursing all these objects, amazing, on point, everything I wished for. And then the next 15 minutes or so, I thought were kind of boring. I didn't think anything happened, and I don't know if I can really say this on here, but humping our way to victory is about the cringiest thing I've ever seen in Goosebumps, just period. So, not happy with that. But then, as soon as that camera comes into play, or the haunted house even, yeah, boom, amazing. I loved it. And I think that the football scene,
Yeah.
I know some people didn't like it, but me and Alejandro both loved it. It
went
was
hard.
so awesome. Reminded us just of the scene where Bird is playing sports or whatever. I don't remember which one, but yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
had an injury. So yeah, very
Oh,
good
yeah.
callback to the book.
All right, I'm going to pass it over to BD. BD, what did you think of Say Cheese and Die?
25 minutes. The first 25 minutes, cringe, painful, awful. And then the back half was pretty decent. I actually enjoyed the back half of it. The football scene was good. I did like the whole imagery that they had behind it. I like the fact that a certain villain is directly tied in with it. That was a new approach that I thought was pretty refreshing. I did like the beginning. The first 5 minutes of the show was pretty good. But yeah, it had a very rough portion. It's easily one of the roughest portions in the entire show. And if you can get through that, there's a lot better stuff that comes later. So even though it was a bit of a slog in the beginning, I thought at least the back half kind of redeemed it, and there is better stuff to come. Maybe not directly in the episode after, but wait a couple episodes.
Okay. Alex, what was your thoughts on Say Cheese and Die?
All right. So basically everything that Bruce said, I'm just going to recite a bit. I think the first 2 minutes, fantastic. Great setup to, the character, Harold. I thought it was absolutely great. I loved basically every second of it. It was actually decently creepy. Of course, it didn't give me goosebumps because I'm a bit more mature than a 5-year-old. But yeah, pretty good. Pretty damn good. The first 25 minutes, whilst being very cringe, I thought there were some okay moments in there. Like, I don't know if this is controversial, but the scene of Isaiah and I can't remember her name, but
You're thinking of Margot?
yeah, Margot. I was about to say the Crimson Chin. Very, very good. I like that scene with them. The first scene where they interact, so I thought it was pretty good. Of course, the humping our way to victory thing was not Same with the over sexual jokes. I thought they were off. You get used to it, but yeah, I thought it was just very strange. First 25 minutes, definitely the worst 25 minutes of the whole show. Yeah. When you get to the actual say, cheese, and die portion of the episode, where the camera finally comes into play, I thought it immediately rocketed up. It was absolutely phenomenal. And there was actually a great sense of mystery building up to that. And during that, like, there's a little thing going on with Nora during the football scene that you'll notice. And if you're going in blind, you might have no clue what's going on there. So it's definitely mysterious. Why would she have that going on? And of course, there's also why is this ghost kid coming after them? You know that from the trailers. It's very interesting. I love a lot of stuff about it. Definitely has some great stuff to it. Just not a great first 25 minutes, great second half. Basically, yeah.
Spongy, what do you have to say about Say Cheese and Die?
Well, all right, go for first episode. I thought it was fine. But you pretty good overcome a drawback, and that had a lot to introduce. And the consequence of that, the actual gauging and die portion is shortchanged. So you have to like half an hour to even really get there. When you get there, I think what they do cool. I like the thing we do with the camera and that bulky and welcome. And I feel like if that can work out some stuff that you could just put into another episode easily, and you get some stuff with some team which is alright, some stuff with funny, some stuff with cringe, kind of like really true to what I know some teenagers or some people online, or even How I Met Your Mother probably right. He does write teenagers, and sometimes he does write them in a cringe way. May not exactly this way, but you know. So definitely a mixed bag, but shaped out as being fine as an introduction, even if this is definitely some of the rougher stuff in the show. I have to get into everything. Kind of clarify.
All right, yeah. Great points. And Becca, what did you think about the first episode, Say Cheese and Die?
It's interesting. I watched all of them back to back to back. They all kind of blended together to me. It was like a trip watching all of them back to back to back. It's not the best episode of the season so far. I didn't hate it as much as a lot of people. I think it's interesting because like I like a lot of it. I like the score is killer. The score is actually like wild in this show. I think that added to the atmosphere of the show. I don't think he's the strongest character so far because obviously it was focusing on different characters, and clearly the best character shows up later as the main focus. But like I don't know. I didn't have issues with a lot of the other subjects. I didn't have issues with I don't know. I thought that humping your way to victory. I thought that was funny as shit. I don't know. It gave me vibes of like high school comedies. It gave me. There's a couple that came out this year that it had the same like one. Emma Sligman's Bottoms. It had the same exact vibe as that movie, and that movie is fucking hilarious. That's a great teen comedy, a reinvention of the genre, and I think that this show, what I liked about it was because the 90s show, a lot of people herald the 90s show, but we got to be honest here. The Goosebumps original show was 90s-ified. You had all these like skateboarders and all the music was like very 90s. Like the fact that this show is emulating the time period is not like some people were mad about it. I personally don't see a problem because the 90s show was very 90s, and it's very in your face about the fact that it was in the 90s that this show was coming out. I like the characters. I like the introductions. I like how they're tying everything together and it all has a central point, because I could get into a whole video later down the road. Like I can make a whole one about how anthologies don't work these days, because you'll always have the weekend episodes. You'll always have the strong episodes, and it just feels uneven. And I think putting them all together destroys the unevenness and kind of leads to a more structured season, so it feels consistent and cohesive. And I thought the episode was cool. I thought it was an interesting start, but I could definitely say that my favorites were 2, 3, 4. I don't know if that's because that was me at my peak where I was like vibing, and then it fell off by 5. But I liked the episode. I thought it was cool. I like the acting. Justin Long's great in it so far. He gets better as the show goes on. I always say shout out to Miles McKenna because that pretty much the strongest performance so far out of all the kids right now. But I don't know. It's a good episode. It gets better though. I think everyone's saying it gets better. It's true. This is probably my 4th favorite episode of the season. And it gets better than this. It really, when you get into what's happening, it gets stronger. But no, it's a good episode. It's not perfect, but it's pretty great. That's my piece about it.
All right. Great observations there. I guess I'll share with what I think. You know, going into this, I was curious to see what a modern take on Goosebumps would be, given that the old show was more of like Goosebumps in its prime. So it was literally just taking from Goosebumps in like its Genesis phase. You know, these are brand new coming out. The old show was taking that new, making it of its time. That's why it's kind of trapped in the 90s. But this new show, going into it, knowing that it's more adult focused, knowing that it's going to be a different angle, different type of storytelling. Anthology is short form storytelling. You have concise stuff told in one fell swoop. Long form, you have to go through the whole kit and caboodle to get to the good stuff. Going into the first episode, I thought it was a fine start. Mild cringe here and there, but nothing. I didn't really feel like nothing was happening for like the first half of it. And then when it got around that 33-minute point, it started to kick on because it started to feel like more traditional Goosebumps storytelling. You have the main character of the story actually going through trials and tribulations with said item. That's the focus of the story. So it became more familiar. It became more easily accessible when you cut through the weeds of, you know, it having pilotitis. You have to set up all these characters. You have to go through the rigmarole, setting up the grander story. Since this is long form storytelling, you have to go through that, unfortunately. And I just personally wish it was better. But once you get to that, you know, back half of the episode, it starts to get a little bit better. And I really did enjoy some liberties they took in adding some stuff to the camera. I did like some of the new concepts they kind of molded in there, even though it's kind of vague and you don't really know how it's doing.
Like how they can't see the photo. I thought that was cool. Like how he can only see the photo.
That stuff's kind of vague, right? But it's still a cool idea, and I could see myself saying, "Hey, R.L. Stine, I could see him putting this in a book." Like a lot of these concepts are actually pretty spot on, good concepts that I think R.L. Stine could or should actually entertain maybe in another Save Cheese and Die book. And I was not expecting. Well, I kind of knew going in that the gore, or I should say the blood, was going to be more graphic. But that football scene in the end legit got me. I was like, that made me kind of squirm inside. It gave me legitimate goosebumps seeing that pop out of his arm. I don't know, maybe I'm squeamish to body horror. I don't know what it was, but that got me. And I was thoroughly entertained, and I wanted to kind of check out what they were going to do the next episode. That being said, not the biggest fan of the dialogue per se. And I will say this, Miles McKenna in this episode, even though the humping their way to victory line, we all could kind of agree, is kind of cringy. The delivery was still funny. Miles McKenna definitely had the most personality, I feel here. Isaiah's as a main character, unfortunately, gets put to the side because you have to introduce all these other side characters too. I don't really feel like Isaiah got the best characterization out of the first 5 episodes by any means. I feel like his character is definitely one that got more and more as the episodes went on, unfortunately. So, you know, it could have been better and tighter in areas. It could have tried to get into the camera way quicker and kind of expedite things. But, you know, just analyzing the back half, it wasn't a complete waste of time. It does get better, though. And I will agree with you.
That broken bone, there's a thing later. It might be episode 4, episode 5. There's a moment where they're asking him, have you been using it a lot, his arm? And they cut to him like doing all the crazy shit going on. That edit was funny. I thought that cut to was hilarious, where it's like, have you been using your arm? And they're running away and he's like bumping into shit and they're like, no, I haven't been using my arm recently. Like, so that's the type of humor that I think there isn't. I would love to see a little bit more of. Is just situational humor of just, oh yeah, like that's the type of stuff that like I'm fine with like the jokes that are raunch as shit, like that's cool too. But I would love to see a little bit more of just little comedic moments like that are like, oh, that's silly, like that's funny. I don't know. But that ties to the whole like, yeah, the bone, the whole thing about his fucking arm that's like goes through the whole season so far. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. What do you want to say, Bruce?
This is just like 5 seconds. There is references to Welcome to Dead House, Stay Out of the Basement, and Monster Blood. If you look closely, me and Alex noticed on call.
Or like in the background, because I know in like episode 5, I believe in the background you see a poster that sort of like an homage to the Down Basement cover.
Yeah.
In
Well,
the basement.
The library scene, I noticed this watching it. I thought I thought I might have been too stoned to notice little things like that, but I looked in the back and I was like, I could see like all the different books. Like they had all the books in the library. I was like, oh, like in Fear Street when they're selling Fear Street books and Goosebumps books in the first scene. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like in the library, they have like the book from the 2015 movie, and then you have like a Give Yourself in the Corridor, and then you have every time they switch shots, you can see different books. It was cool.
Let's move on to
I didn't know that.
the Haunted Mask.
Yeah, let's move on. And I'm going to throw it to BD. I'm going to throw it to BD first for the Haunted Mask. Because episode 2 might be the most divisive episode out of the whole first 5 for everyone. I think more people are more unified that Say Cheese and Die is not the greatest episode of the bunch. But the Haunted Mask opinions is where people start to fluctuate a little bit. And BD, I want to know your thoughts about the Haunted Mask episode first. Because, yeah. Let's just start with you.
Preface, people. If you like the Haunted Mask, I apologize for what I'm about to say, because I'm about to destroy the first half of it. So, fair warning. There is a scene at the climax that did actually make me a little bit happy. That actually scared me. I thought it was an impressive jump scare scene. So I did give it a little bit more points than Say Cheese and Die. However, Isabella is cringe, y'all. She is one of the worst characters in the show. She gets ignored. Comically ignored throughout like the first 10 minutes. She runs the pictures for the rallies and stuff. Like she takes drone photos and records all these different games. They don't know this woman exists. She will bump into people and they think that they bumped into Casper the Ghost or something. Like they just completely ignore her throughout the entire 15 minutes. And then you find out that the troll, which has been harassing all the kids in the school, is this girl. And if that's not insult to injury, she has Heath Ledger's The Joker on her wall. And I was like, who is writing this edgy commentary? I'm
surprised it wasn't Joaquin.
Right. I was expecting, Jeffrey Dahmer to be her wallpaper. I was like, what's going on here? Who is this girl? So I was like, Isabella, not the strongest character, far from it. And then you have the Haunted Mask. Now, the Haunted Mask, this bootleg Purge mask, Isabella must be robbing banks out here. This thing looks so goofy. I like the scene where she gets it. I thought it was a pretty creepy scene. I like the way that the mask talks to her. It's very eerie, very creepy. Reminds me of Screams of the Haunted Mask from Horrorland. However, I was not expecting her to put it on and start seducting chicks and guys at the party. That is not exactly what I expected. It becomes very sexualized quickly. I like the aspect of the Haunted Mask, before a certain transformation scene happens, the mask is able to smile, and that's creepy. When you see it start smiling and start moving, it's very eerie. It does make you uncomfortable, no matter how you may think about the looks of the mask. And then you get to the transformation scene, which is probably the most divisive thing in the entire fandom.
I'm okay, but
Is there echo
Hey,
going on?
dummies, you have echo? Okay, try it again. BD.
I think it's still echoing.
Yeah.
My echo.
Everybody's echoing. Okay, now we're good. Okay. So
Okay, I'll go say that the CGI used for the transformation looked bad. I think we can agree on that. CGI it looked great in general in the show, but that particular transformation looked goofy. Okay, go on.
yeah,
it does
the
look good.
CGI, without a doubt, the transformation looked bad. Now, some people, they like the look of the new haunted mask. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship because I know completionist feels this way. We got baited, y'all. I'm sorry to say it, we got baited because the producer told us for some reason, I don't know why he said this. He could have just been accurate, but he baited us by telling us that it was gonna look cover accurate. And
Are you sure though that it might not come back later? Like, are you sure that we will? Because maybe in like episode 6 or 7, all the items come back and they look more developed. Like as the season goes on, they get more. Like you might have the cuckoo clock. We actually will see the bird, and they might have to turn the head. Like the things in the books might show up later. Is my thought on it. Is like I'm not saying it right away, going crazy about it, because there is that possibility that episode 7 we might get a really weird fucking mask that's like reminiscent, you know?
It's possible, we could get there. I mean, I'll wait to see because I mean, so far the other objects, I think the other objects look great. Like I think the cuckoo clock looks great, looks accurate. I think the Polaroid camera for Say Cheese and Die, that looks good. Instead of a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger object from the previous show, this looks like a realistic camera. But the
Right.
haunted mask, y'all, this is Gollum's stunt double. Like it's just bootleg Gollum. Like it looks terrible. I'm sorry, you may like that. I was completely thrown off because, like Becca mentioned, it might change later. But he even wanted the haunted mask. It looks like an actual goblin. So I was like, okay, you know what? They have that poster on the Instagram post. It might look like that. No, it's just straight up Gollum's, ex cousin that, his cousin that never got the role in Lord of the Rings. This is him. He just pulls up in Goosebumps, and it looks awful. And the thing is, even the teeth change. Like it starts off with sharp teeth, and then later on when you get to the house scene, it's got teeth like mine. So it was changing angles, looking real weird. It kind of threw me off. But the climax scene I thought was pretty good. It was pretty scary. And it actually did get me. So shout out to Goosebumps. You actually jump scared me. I freaked out my mom who was working at her desk. But yeah, good job, Goosebumps. And then you get to the ending scene where they find a way to kind of deal with the object. And that had a pretty cringy interaction scene of them yelling at water as something is drowning. So overall,
Yeah.
I thought it was better than episode 1, but did it impress me? No. But let's hear other people's thoughts.
Yeah, let's turn it over to Minnesota. What did you think about the Haunted Mask episode?
You know what? It's already going to be long enough. I'm just going to express it. Now, people can hate whatever they want about this new mask. And I'm sorry, but I have to be a part of the group that is probably a few people at most that just says, you know what? It kind of looks good. I'm not going to lie. The transformation, I rewatched it. It looks horrible. But once it's in that form of, I guess it's supposed to be a goblin or something. I
Like a troll.
don't really see it, but a troll. I think that it looks, dare I say it, kind of great. I think that it works well for how it fits the face of the girl. It looks like it actually like stuck into her face. Like the old mask, the fact that it became stuck is just kind of weird to me, as it's supposed to be all kind of muscular in a way. Like it's like big cheeks and all that, and really deformed. Whilst Carly here is just like a little girl. While I see this one actually looking like it was on a teenage girl, not just random mask, whatever. Although I can admit it's the worst of the 3, well, kind of 90s masks, since this is being based out of the 90s in a way. So I really liked it. I don't know. I don't really know what Alex has to say on this, but I think he did too. And actually, I'd like to pass it over to him. So, what do you think?
So the episode itself, we don't really talk about that. It was just basically pretty good. When you get to the climax scene where the haunted mask is, turning into the haunted mask that we know and love, quote unquote. Of course, the CGI when it's actually transforming is absolutely terrible. Like it looks good at first, but then it's just like, ew, you look like a, ugh, I can't even put my finger on it. It's just terrible. Of course, like Bruce said, when it actually is going around and it's, the CGI scene is over, I think it looks pretty damn good. Honestly, I'd even say it's great. I'd even say it's great. Um, Not only does it fit the person who it's wearing, not like, oh, it actually looks like it's actually on her, or whatever he said. It kind of makes sense. Isabella is a troll on the internet, and the mask is very reminiscent of a troll or a goblin. So it kind of makes sense why it looks more towards that aspect of the haunted mask being based off a goblin or a troll, or very goblin-like. So it genuinely does make me why it does look like that, and that's what makes me appreciate it more. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff I liked about the haunted mask in general, at least design-wise. When it was in the white mask form, I thought it was also okay. Of course, not the greatest, but when it smiled, it was definitely a lot creepier.
Agree.
Definitely had some questionable stuff. The sexualizing scene at the party.
Yeah.
Very weird. Very bad
Actually,
music.
I'd like to add that was me and Alex's least favorite scene from the whole show. It was just really weird.
Oh,
It was kind of cool to just see it at first, like finally on somebody, but then we kind of realized we were like, what was that supposed to be? Like, that's just awkward. And I know this is supposed to be in more of an adult direction, but come on. It's Goosebumps. Like, does that really have to be? I'd rather have a million humping our way to victory jokes than that, honestly.
I don't know. Goosebumps has always had a really weird energy to it because Bride of the Living Dummy had him Slappy
Yeah.
trying to get a child bride. So I feel like it's
I mean-
always been a little bit, and Say Cheese and Die Again has the whole like I'm fat. So it's like it's always had that weird fucking energy where it's like it's not socially acceptable to an extent, but people are fine with it because it's like a kids thing. You know,
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, I just want to chime in before I pass it over to Spongy. Yeah, I totally agree with y'all. The transformation scene looks god awful. I mean, it's atrocious, and that took me like, I had to pause my screen when that happened. I was just like, what am I witnessing right now? I was like, I know they does not just do that, but I'll say what I want to say for later because we need to keep it going for time. Spongy, what did you think about the haunted mask?
All right, go on back up. Good. I thought we're getting the fine to good category. But my issue with that, like I'm for one, it spent not enough time on the title thing. I gotta had to there were some other side stuff going on at the same time. So you just don't like over a friend of mine, Nicole on Twitter, calculated the free time the Haunted Mac and Isabella get, and I don't think it will go a ton. So I genuinely do like the idea of the whole her being a troll thing, and then her being invisible and her trying to using a troll to cover up, peeked out head up, so kind of like the go and Haunted Mac and how I genuinely think that's a cool and fresh idea. You become cringe on the way, but I like the idea, and I do feel like it's got some cool, scary moment in the climax. The problem is that they don't get to flesh out good enough. I never felt like I got a good why she 100% like this. Like, oh, she's invisible. Okay, we play a song on piano violin. Like, I feel like I didn't get to know her that well because of other stuff, and I think they just needed to.
Totally with you there.
Flesh just flesh out more. And after the Mac design, I go back and forth. First time I should call that, I went to, but then I'm like, no. I feel like if it was made greener, a little bit brighter, I'd be more okay with it. But we showed the thumbnail when you made the thumbnail and you're showing side by side the old Mac. I went, I see the problem. Like they're downgraded. Brought it going. I think we're fine with what they're going for. A mixed bag, but lean toward good because I genuinely did like some of what we did. I thought there was some emotional stuff for me as well. I enjoyed the little brother. I thought he was fun. I thought the bell looked all right for even if she's not acting. She's looking at the peak of her relevance. And okay, I criticized KGI, but KGI in the show, bad KGI kind of charming in that Goosebumps kind of way. Maybe the show will like campier, it'll be more cool because it's more serious, and you're supposed to take carefully with bad KGI. But so yeah, I can see why the episode device is going more in the middle. I would say.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on a lot of those points. But before I say what I want to say, I want to pass it over to Becca. What did you think about the Haunted Mask episode?
They needle dropped 9-inch nails, so I feel like that's enough to give it a good score.
I actually
they played 9-inch nails, which I was like, okay, so they understand this grimy, hot topic Gen Z energy. I like that. I really like this. This might be my second or my third favorite episode. If it's in the top 3 for me, where I don't hate it. I think it doesn't. The thing is, I'll say it right now, my least favorite episode is probably the 5th one because it's a bridge episode and it very much is trying to get to the next thing. I like the Haunted Mask episode. I Dummies already said it, but the whole time watching it, I almost liked this approach to the Haunted Mask more than the other ones they've done because it was them taking the mask and making it an allegory like the old Twilight Zone episode The Masks, where it's like you become what you are inside. So she becomes a troll, and if someone put it on that was a monster inside, they turn into a like it's interesting that they kind of spun it that way, which I really find intriguing, which is the mask emulates your inside shit outside. I was like, that's cool, and that's a vibe, and that feels like a very modern subtextual take on what the mask is, because really the books and the show got into it that way, but they didn't go that deep with it. They didn't explain it in that way, but this episode kind of put a light on that idea. And I gotta say, the last 5 minutes of this episode go wild because someone explodes and then they just end the episode. So it's like, it's such a great ending where you're like, what the fuck is going on? They just exploded and they're goop now. And you're like, what's going on? And I'll say every episode has a really good ending, bridge ending. You know, the first one had Justin Long possessed. This one had the explosion. The last one has Justin Long like, you want to see who's in this box? Like, there's a lot of the outros of the episodes. That's one thing I'll say. I'm not a big fan of shows, and the issue that shows have is they don't have great endings to get you tied to the next episode. A lot of the time, this show's been able to do it where I'm like, I want to see what's next. That's a great way to end it. That's cool. But no, I like the Haunted Mask episode. I think the design makes sense to the subtextual narrative of the episode, what they're trying to go for. And I don't know, it's fun. It was cool. They needle dropped a bunch of songs that actually had a purpose to it too. I feel like everything has like the songs, the color grading, the lighting, what the things do, all of it has this subtextual context where it has a purpose. And that's something that I feel like you never see in stuff like Riverdale. It's just stuff happens, there's no purpose. This one, everything feels like there's a reason. Everything's tied together in a nice little bow. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I know a lot of people don't like the design, but you know, I think the Haunted Mask is not so much one type of design because the book cover is different from the episode. It's very much like it's more of a interpretive piece of like what the person is, I guess. But no, it's good. I like it. It's cool.
I'm glad you mentioned the interpretive part because that's what we're going appealing to the story. That behind that, you could fit in a different way. They could represent different things, which is why I want inherently mind it being different. You know,
and they keep doing that with every episode so far. Every piece has an interpretive purpose to the character, and it's very tied in well why these characters have these items and why these items function the way that they do. I find very surprisingly quality in a show that could have been just a stereotypical teen show. They were able to take these items that we all know from the books for the last 30 years they've been books and almost say something with them, like say a message with them, which I thought was cool because the 90s show is cool, but there really is no subtextual weight to any of the episodes. But this show almost was like, we're going to go over and above and actually do something with them in a way that's more than just, oh, just to this one person in this one situation, I guess, you know, and how everything ties together is pretty cool too.
Okay. So to build off that, you know what I liked, we're starting to get more into the positives for me with these episodes moving forward. What I loved about this episode is what y'all basically said. I loved how they took the concept of the mask bringing out the evil within the wearer. That was alluded to with the comic shop owner in the books. These masks were his former faces. They got warped and turned from whatever was within him, and he had to take them off and repeat the process. So I like the fact that the mask has that ability, and I do think that that's a great thematic device to be used. And I do think that having the internet troll thing be the identity of the mask for Isabella, who's wearing it, is a great tie-in, and it ties it all like Becca said in a neat bow, and it fits. It does work well. I think with the concept of the mask being able to whisper and try to mind game people, I like that too. I think that's a great addition. I think Screaming of a Haunted Mask did some of that, but to actually see it done here makes me want to see it done in a book. I think that this episode, the concept of it at least, would make an okay book at least. It depends on how well the character's written in a book setting. But aside from that, kind of like what Spongy said, I have a problem with the characterization of Isabella. The one thing that I think makes the original Haunted Mask book a timeless classic, even though it's written in third person, is that it's able to be universal. And I feel like there's a disconnect coming into Isabella's character because she is a cyberbully. She's a cyberbully. She's kind of put in that same camp as Steve Boswell, where she has this side to her where she's invisible to everybody, but we don't really understand why she's invisible because we learn later on in the episode that her parents are friends with these other kids' parents. Why is she so invisible? We never learn that, really. All we get is that, like BD said, they're treating her like Casper the Ghost. Why are they doing this? You don't really get the sense, but you do get that she's trying to step outside of her comfort zone. She goes to this party, she finds the mask allures her, and then she gets intoxicated by it. She brings it with her everywhere she goes. I like that element, but the trivialness, the whole setup, it reminds me of Haunted Mask 2, when Steve wants to get revenge on some soccer kids for breaking whatever limb he got broken. Her drone gets broken, and she's like, you know what? I want revenge. I want revenge on this Lucas guy. And she goes and puts the mask on. And I haven't even talked about this, but there's something missing here that the Haunted Mask books do so well. And that is that this is a Halloween story. The beginning of the episode starts on Halloween, but it ends at the party. We're going into the day after Halloween. We're not getting any Halloween atmosphere with a story talking about a Halloween mask. Okay? So you're kind of disconnecting that and you're moving it to just a generic mask. And I guess that's why they chose the basic mask, because they knew it was not going to be solely set on Halloween. That's fine to an extent. But then you get to the transformation scene, it's god awful. I'm not a fan of the troll look. I hate the way his ears look and his eyes. There's just something about it that just does not do it for me, personally. But the execution is fine. We get to the end. You get that scene where they drop the mask into the pond and they're like chanting that whatever how many times. I know BD does not like that scene, but that actually made me kind of laugh a little bit just for the absurdity of it.
Yeah. When they kept the first time, it was funny, but then they repeat it. I'm like, all right, you're getting old.
But you know what gets me the most, and like y'all brought up this point, that the mask may turn into the traditional mask later on in the show. For the episode called The Haunted Mask, this is the one called The Haunted Mask. We don't get that. If we do get it, we don't see it here. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah.
They could have maybe saved that troll allegory stuff later on.
Wait till
Or-
give yourself goosebumps. Wait till the give
Yeah.
yourself goosebumps episode.
maybe we'll get that. Maybe we'll get some vindication for all the
Fifi will put the mask
Yeah,
on
Fifi puts on the mask, and that's when it gets covered.
and becomes a bitch. Just kidding.
Yeah, Fifi's fangs permanently embed itself into the mask, and
Like literally
probably
son of
gonna-
a Mac.
but it's kind of a shame. But honestly, like I said, this would be a fine book. It would be a totally fine book premise idea, and that's kind of how I'm looking at the show. Like, if I can see that these are good ideas to put in a Goosebumps book, then I'm sold on the concept. And the concepts so far have not really been the problem, for at least for the first 2 episodes. And once we get into episodes 3 through 5, and because of time, we're going to try to talk about 3 through 5 when I pass it off, all in one compass. So it's Cuckoo Clock of Doom, Go Eat Worms, and Reader Beware. Okay. So I'm going to pass it off to Becca first.
Okay.
What do you think about episodes 3 through 5? What was your favorite of them? What was your least favorite? What did you like about them?
It's interesting because, like, I think the best episode so far is episode 3. I think it's interesting. It's the most interesting character on Focus, and it's genuinely the Cuckoo Clock of Doom is a book and a story that I think is silly and ridiculous, and they gave it some like weight, which I think is cool. They made like a alternate reality take on it, which actually made sense and was actually compelling. Obviously, like and you're focusing on the best character of the show so far. So I thought that it was fun to watch this adventure go on of these clones, and it was funny. It was creepy. I like the Go Eat Worms episode. I really like it. I think it's interesting and it's another book where I think it's weak as shit, but they were able to take the generalized idea of the worms and make it into something actually compelling, which is something that I love about this show, is that even for Say Cheese and Die, they make it way more interesting the way they execute it than they did in the books. And I think that's, I don't know, and Reader Beware was an interesting episode. It's clearly a bridge episode, but I'll say that the acting just somehow got like more dramatic, which I thought was interesting. Specifically, Rachel Harris running around being like, he's looking for him. Like, I thought that I was like, wow, the acting's actually really good from the parents in this episode. And I could tell that it was a bridge to something completely different. Like, this new episode, I'm assuming we're getting the backstory of Slappy. That scene of them standing on the couch freaking the fuck out, that's probably Slappy's going to come up and be like, you bitch motherfuckers. And they're like, oh my God. Like, that's going to be the scene. And I think it's going to be a great scene. But, like, I can tell that Reader Beware, it's not my favorite episode. It's my least favorite, but it's still important because it's a bridge to what we're going to see next, which what I'm assuming is the first half of the season is development showing who everyone is, and the second half is going to be batshit crazy, random characters coming out of nowhere. Everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, none of this makes sense. And like that's what when we saw photos like Fifi and shit, I'm like, oh, so they're going to go hard in the paint. The fact that they did You Can't Scare Me later, I'm like, they're clearly going to go crazy with the last. And that's what I heard from people who have seen all the first 8 episodes. They said 6, 7, 8, they go crazy. Like, they just let go. It's relentless. I'm like, that's what I want. I wanted. So I feel like what this show's going to end up being is that when we finish it, everyone will like the first 4 episodes more because it will make sense when we see the rest of it. It'll be one of those shows where you got to sit with it a bit. And then once you sit with it, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. It isn't like it's a bigger picture situation maybe. But obviously the best episode this season so far, Cuckoo Clock of Doom. Come on, like taking the most ridiculous story, one of the most ridiculous stories of the original OG 62, and making it actually cool. I like that. That's a vibe.
Okay. For time, I'm gonna kind of try to get through this part quick, so we got to move on to some discussion. Spongy, what did you think about episodes 3 through 5?
All right, go. Okay, episode 3 and 4 definitely about tied for them. I mean, Cuckoo Clock of Doom I like that got right into it, didn't mess around like Tony Governor had done. And I did enjoy. I liked the thought for James. I thought he got some fun stuff with the Groundhog Day thing, but how I found Janie clever how they took the big coupon idea and ran with it, where eventually, it does get a little more boring in the back half. Like, look at start focusing on other stuff. It's like coming out a little more dull, but it does come back around. And there's a few weird things, like they have a thing with him and Agaya where reactive. They have a deep friendship thing in the episode when at that point not really. But I still it was just fun, but I think the kind of more tiny element to it than going that fun. Go Eat Worm, man, I kept that like everyone's like favorite, even if they don't like the show that much. Great that they took Go Eat Worm whole thing and made it into something everyone can like be into. Because Luca is like Luca and James are my favorite, and Luca he's just a freak. I like that. And then look up go we get to see some trauma going on with like his dad and the worm. So Brad body horror with that was really cool. We got a fun climax and to get a deeper stuff, when we find out coming with his dad was genuinely gotten some tougher subject matter, and I thought it was done more respectfully, and I did like that. We also get through to the affair thing, which I'll have some word for in a minute. Then go, but going one got a little inflated. I thought it took a bit too long to get. No, we'll get it back in the first episode, but it took a little too long. Go, Cool God Doom had a beat in terms of painting, but going one kind of cool stuff to it, and I like the clever idea. Forget to bear. Then episode 5, Reviewer, probably my least favorite, just because the first one had the excuse of being a pilot. This one doesn't. So I like the thing of them interacting, like a Weekend at Bernie style bit, which was fun. And when they used this book to find out more backstory, I thought that was intriguing. It created convincing intrigue, but the golf goes like a lot of a bridge, go with a lot of fluff, and without a book to fall back on, it got the bone and more boring aspect being over convincing aspect as well. And then here we're going to get more in depth with the affair stuff, the affair stuff I just do not care about in the latest. Like in the first scene, you have Nora and the other guy getting up after having to and she got for two grown adults having an affair, which is like cringe dialogue. Who wrote that? Episode 5 definitely weaker, but episode 3 and 4 good. That's what I got.
Yeah, I totally agree. Episode 5 is just a lot of exposition. It's there's no book to fall back on. It's just characters, the whole cast. I mean, I guess you got Margot as the main character, but still, like it's definitely I would say down there in my bottom 2 as well. I guess I'll go ahead and say my thoughts and pass it off. Episode 5, my least favorite out of 3 through 5. It's not bad or anything. It's okay. It's a good setup to what we're going to be expecting for the next 5 episodes. And for it being a Bridgepoint episode, it does have a lot of intrigue. I did like the fact that Biddle communicated with Margot inside of these visions. I thought that was creepy. I was like, holy crap, he can go back in between his physical, like non-burnt form and his burnt form. I thought that was creepy and eerie. I actually like that when he does that in the episode. I like that they become kind of like the Mystery Inc. and now they're joining forces and going around trying to put a stop to Biddle. And I did like some emotional bits in the episode dealing with the mom of Margot, when she realizes that point. Mild spoiler in case you haven't seen episode 5, but when she realizes that she was friends with Harold Biddle, you can tell that like she's like, oh man, I don't even know if I can trust my own mom now. And I thought that was a pretty good character moment for Margot, who I was struggling with up until this episode a little bit. But yeah, it's just kind of boring. Episode 3 and 4 are actually good episodes. I give a round of applause to Cuckoo Clock of Doom's episode 3. I love Miles McKenna in this episode.
Sexy catboy shit. Let's go.
James stole the show in this episode. I know a lot of people actually came out and said they hated James in this episode. I'm like, I don't see it. I thought Miles was so charismatic. I like how full of expression he is when he's acting. You can clearly tell that he's given the most effort out of the whole team.
He's the most classically trained actor. Yeah, it seems like. Yeah.
He's the oldest.
some mild dialogue here and there, but for the most part, I like seeing that journey. I thought it was really creepy. I thought that this idea with Cuckoo Clock would have been a fun, like, rehash idea that R.L. Stine can do in the modern books. I was like, man, he could totally rehash this book and use this idea. Like a Groundhog Day, you got evil clones trying to kill you. That's a creepy book idea. Why haven't you done it before, Stein? Anyway, but it is kind of like a mixture. If you took I Am Your Evil Twin and Cuckoo Clock of Doom, both of those books, and you mash them up, it's not a bad mixture. I was thoroughly entertained. I like how dark it got, unexpectedly dark. But then episode 4 came, and we all said, why are they making Go Eat Worms? Why are they doing this? And then I watched it, and I was like, this is the sleeper hit of this first 5 batch for me. Seeing Lucas, who I did not like those first 2 episodes, get some characterization. You get a whole plethora of stuff going on where he starts to connect with Margot over their parents having an affair with each other. I thought that was unnecessary too. I'm like, Nora is no longer that likable, but it is what it is. I like that connection there. That felt genuine. The worm stuff was kind of gratuitously gross, but it's a gross out type of idea anyway to begin with. So the fact that they made the worms crawl under his skin, that genuinely got to me. And I know that was CGI, but that was creepy. When he just, like, he said, oh, my shoulder's hurt, and he pops it back and he lifts up his shoulder, and you see those worms. That was disgusting. And the worm monster, what people keep complaining about the most, I thought was fun. This was a bombastic, fun story from start to finish. Honestly, I would say that this is in like an S tier story for me for this show. Like, this was like, it had so many emotional elements with Lucas, him coming to grips with his father's. I do see the symbology with the worms. He's internalizing pain, and he's becoming numb to the pain. He can't really express his true emotions to his mom, and once he vomits all those worms out, he's finally able to cry on her shoulder and say how he feels. That was very well done, very emotional stuff. That's like A+ Goosebumps stuff when R.L. Stine can't pull that off. So, round of applause to episode 4, definitely my favorite. But I need to pass it off for time purpose. So, BD Horror, what did you think about episodes 3 through 5? I'm gonna pass it off to you now.
So I'm a huge fan of Cuckoo Clock of Doom, the original story. So seeing the new version, I actually enjoyed it. I thought that the candy clone thing was a bit weird at first because I initially thought that they were going down the route of making like multiple timeline versions of James with the clock, which I thought would have been maybe a more understandable choice. But yeah, James is the best actor in this show. Maybe because he's the oldest, but he does a fantastic job. He's charismatic. He's funny. When you see him act out as the evil clones, he does a good job. There's a scene where they're trying to guess which one is the real James, and they admit that, none of us are the real one. We're all the evil ones. I thought that was clever. He did a good job acting that out. And I like the team-up scene between him and Isaiah at the end because even though I think the relationships in the show are kind of just shoehorned and not as strong, I think Isaiah and James is like the most kind of, I guess, natural, and you kind of get that sense at the very end. So I thought it was the first decent episode. Go Eat Worms, my God. Why couldn't this be the quality of the rest of them? Because Go Eat Worms was pretty great. That was a great episode. Lucas actually ended up being one of my favorites. I love the fact that, in the regular Go Eat Worms book, which is doo-doo garbage, the new one, instead of being this bully character who abuses animals, Lucas is basically Evil Knievel. He's trying to be like his dad. He wants to connect with them in the form of pain. And
he just wants to be Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah, he wants to be part of Jackass. I like it.
Yeah.
And then he has really good, the scene with him and his mom and where he's about to drive off the cliff, that was really good. That's like some emotional stuff that you don't see often in Goosebumps. And I think that Rachel Harris is one of the best actresses in the show. She's doing a great job so far, and she makes it feel really natural. Lucas did a great job in that scene. And oh my God, that action scene for the climax is great. I was not expecting that. I was expecting Dom Toretto, Vin Diesel to pop up as Xander Cage on that motorbike because Lucas was doing some crazy scenes over there that I thought was really cool. And then for episode 5, one word, filler. It was big filler, just a lot of relationship viewing. And I'm with Spongy. I don't really care about the affair. I'm more so mad at the guidance counselor, more so because I'm jealous that he got to smash Rachel Harris. But aside from that, it just feels like a lot of like I can understand the mellow teen drama because that's kind of what they're going for. But then you get parent drama, which is
Yeah.
like they have relationship issues too, which kind of just feels like an extra layer that doesn't need to be added. Just focus on the teenagers because they don't get enough screen time for some of them anyway. And I do like Margot's mom. I think Margot's mom actually might help out the show a lot because she seems to have a good leadership role for the rest of the parents. So I like seeing her included. And a small thing, I like the way they talk about Slappy. I think it's cool. I think the fact
Yeah.
that they refer to like, oh, he's
That
gonna
he's
be good.
this entity that everyone's scared of. I think
Yeah,
that
like
makes it way fucking scarier.
it's
Like,
creepy. And then Margot's
Yeah.
mom, I think, is also named Amy, which is a nod to Night of the Living Dummy 2. Which I think is a
yeah,
nice
Oh.
nod.
which is the
Oh.
name of the maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe her and Biddle had
In
like
part
were
2.
friends who had
Yeah.
him like part 2. Maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. We'll see tonight, but
And
it seems like they're scared of him. Like they're really, really frightened of what the fuck he is, which makes it way more impressive when he shows up. It will be much more of a scary force because they're already setting it up that he's so important to it, you know?
yeah, I
One
think
more
the way
thing
they
before I
talk
pass
about
it off. Oh, never mind. All right, you want to say something else, BD?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, the way they did that was good. My main thing, I'm just gonna wrap it up quick. I think Biddle is kind of the weakest part of the show right now because he's like this big villain, but he's not getting enough screen time, I feel, or enough focus. He just seems very one-dimensional, but we got the rest of the show left, so it could change.
I
One
do
thing
love
I want to add
that.
before I pass it off is that when Nora gets sent to the psychiatric ward, yeah, I'm like, she just talking to the cop, and it comes like the cop just straight up took her to the psychiatric ward and dropped her butt off. I'm just like, what? I legit laughed my
Yeah.
tail off at that. I'm like, that just seems so out of pocket. Yeah, I just remember that because you mentioned something about the ending of Go Eat Worm. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened. All right, so we're gonna pass it off to Alejandro. Goosebumps for Dummies. What did you think about episodes 3 through 5?
All right. The Cuckoo Clock of Doom. I personally think this one is pretty good. I had some small issues with it. No, not James being gay. I completely accept gay people. I'm bisexual, actually. I think James is a great character. Even if he is my least favorite, if I'm being honest, of the main 5, I think he's still a pretty good character. But he definitely made this episode very interesting with his dynamic with this other kid that he really likes. Basically trying to get a boyfriend. It's interesting how he does it with using the cuckoo clock
To get Riz.
and then it kind of backfires because the clones, and I like the clones part of this episode. I was theorizing that the clones were about go eat worms and how if you ate a worm, it would clone you for some reason. That was completely false. And honestly, I prefer this version more, or this idea more. It's definitely a unique take on the Clock of Doom, and I thought it was pretty damn good. I really enjoyed it. I can't really add much more to conversation. Just a really solid episode, some really solid moments. I do want to say that the joke about the Jolly Ranchers was kind of bad. I hated it for the trailers.
I don't know. I thought it was funny because I'm like, Jolly Ranchers do taste a certain way, don't they?
Yeah. They pushed it a bit too much, but kind of funny.
All right, and we'll move it on to Bruce so we can get on to the discussion. What did you think about episodes 3 through 5, Bruce?
So for episode 3, I think that the first 2 episodes I was still hyped, especially as I was watching it here with Alex on call at the same time. We just pressed play at the same time. I think I was just hyping myself up too much, and it still is really good, I'll admit, the first 2. But the third one was when it picked up. The first 2 episodes were laughing, talking the whole time, not picking up too much. I actually missed that whole part about her being an internet troll, so kind of scared maybe I have to rewatch it. But as far as like the episode 3 goes, I think that it picks up. Me and Alex like stopped talking for almost like the whole episode. We're just like hardcore focused on this because The story is great. I hated the character actually of is his name James? I thought he was kind of annoying in my opinion. But then this episode happened and now he's my second favorite. So really shows that you can make a great character as long as you just give them more screen time, which out of all the characters he has the most, especially in this episode. I really like it. I really like the original book. I think that they are both on par for the protagonist. I think his name's Mike from the original book. He's great. And James is great. Go Eat Worms, controversial, but I love the book. I think it's amazing. So when I was watching this, I had really high expectations. And so I was watching it and I loved it. It was just what I loved in the book. Everything was the same, perfect. And I actually, although I really like Todd, I also really like I know I'm thinking he's my favorite character and I can't even remember his name, but Lucas. Lucas is awesome. He's just okay. I'm sorry this might seem rude since I heard he has like brain damage or something, but he's an absolute idiot and I kind of love it. So him doing all this stuff like stunts and I just love it. Yeah. The action scene, it's my favorite. It's now my favorite scene in all of Goosebumps cinema wise. TV show, the new TV show, the movies, everything. So very happy with that. And then episode 5, I'm very mixed on because I gave it an 8 out of 10 myself. And it just feels like they want to show Slappy so bad. You know, the producers are. But then Disney's like, we can't. We can't show Slappy yet. 'Cause we want people to keep watching. And that annoys me. So I said it's an 8. I might even drop it to like a 7 because it really is, like you guys said, filler. It doesn't have much going for it until basically the very end. And even the very end is just cut way short. Like, it feels like I'm fishing and there's no fishing line. That's what I felt like.
That's a great analogy, actually.
What did you think of Clappy? That interview, I think they wanted to keep Clappy close to the chat and possible, but the advertising team was like, no way. We're gonna show them the trailer, we're gonna show them the poster for you. I thought that was funny.
You know what? Slappy's cool, but there's not enough Carl in this season. Let me tell you. I want to see a scene where he starts singing Carlsville, Carlsville. Like, where's that scene? I need that.
If Carl gave a show, everyone would love it. We could be united.
Everyone will remember every
Daniel
fan.
Cash on the new show.
Even if they haven't seen the show, they'll be like, I know who that guy is. It's Carl.
Die-hard fans will know.
Everyone will know. That's what I'm saying. People who've never heard the word Goosebumps in their life will be like, I know that guy. He's Carl.
All right, so we've covered all of our opinions on episodes 1 through 5. Now, let's just talk about like what do you like more? All right, let's just throw it out in the open. I'll say this: out of all the episodes that had the titles of the books, Say Cheese and Die, The Haunted Mask, The Cuckoo Clock of Doom, and Go Eat Worms, in this first batch of 5, I say that Go Eat Worms was my favorite episode of the bunch. Not only because I think it was just the best made and the best story, but I loved it because it gave me an alternative to the book that I love more. Now, I can't say that about every other episode. Cuckoo Clock of Doom, I think I kind of like this one evenly to the book. And what came before it, I do like the new concepts it has. And it's almost kind of night and day comparing the book counterpart and the former episode to this concept-wise. But like I said, I think it would be a fun shake-up. Like in like a loose sequel, because you know how Stein makes loose sequels all the time. Or you can just make a rehash.
He needs book ideas right now. He keeps doing the same book over and over again. He just do this one now.
Yeah. You can just take this concept and run with it. It would be a great concept for a book.
He could get one of his ghostwriters to do it.
Yeah, I'm giving props to the showrunners.
Like Gary Bookever with Legend of the Lost Legend, so he's willing to revisit an idea if he wants to do more of them.
So yeah, the Cuckoo Clock of Doom, I'm about even on my love for. Haunted Mask, like I said, I think the concept would have been okay in a book, right? Given that, you know, it brings out the wearer. But to me, I just feel like Carly Beth being in the mask on Halloween in the book, you get pretty much her the entire story in the mask on Halloween. You have that time of year, you have that ambiance, you have that universality of her stepping out of her skin, trying to be somebody else, trying to get some revenge. And then she has to overcome adversity when the mask sticks on her. She has to learn to love herself. She has to find that symbol of love and overcome the obstacle. I just think that story, to me, is more riveting than what we got with Isabella in this mask and this new show. However, I think in a book form, there might have been a reality where I might have liked this more than One of the Haunted Mask. So I'm kind of curious to see if Stein, if he makes a new Haunted Mask book anytime soon, if he will use this concept, because I think it's a great concept. Say Cheese and Die, it might be divisive. So I think Isaiah might be a better character than Greg, because Greg is a pretty dumb in the book and in the episode and in the sequel.
It's Ryan Gosling though.
I mean, Greg's
Give
pretty
him a
dumb.
pass.
But Spidey's so iconic.
When he falls off the stairs.
They should have had Ryan Gosling to play the kid again. I mean, we already got adult playing high court. Why not bring it further?
Ryan Gosling should have played his Ryan Gosling could have done he could have been the guidance counselor, and he could have done the Ken performance, and it would have been the greatest thing ever.
But for Say Cheese and Die, it's kind of hard, but I mildly prefer the book, and just for nostalgia. And I'm gonna be honest, I know this is not, it's not really right to compare the new show to the old show, but for some reason, I like the charm of the original story more. I don't feel like I get enough Isaiah with the camera here, even though he had some creepy moments. I just don't feel that connection there. So that's why I prefer the book. But other than that, I think the show did a valiant effort with these 4 episodes. And what do you guys think about that? Do y'all have any new favorites over the concepts, whatever?
Mine's
Obvious.
We'll pass it over to Alex.
Yeah.
Let's pass it over to Alex real quick.
Let's go.
You guys cut me off early. I never said anything about episodes 4 and 5.
Yeah, I'll go put that out, but I will just try to bring up.
Okay. Let's go back to that real quick. What do you think about episodes 4 and 5, and then segue that into what you think about these first 4 episodes and what you like more from the previous?
All right, so episode 4, Go Eat Worms, hands down my absolute favorite. And not just because of the climax. Obviously, that was the best part of the episode. But I thought, besides like the first few minutes of it, I thought Lucas was overall my favorite character from this new show. Even better than Justin Long, in my absolute opinion. I just really like Lucas. He obviously has brain damage for obvious reasons. He's very even beforehand, he probably was very stupid because he does these stupid stunts. No offense if you like doing that stuff. It's cool. He's trying to be a jock or just this cool kid who does stuff just like his father. And I like that his dynamic is because his father is dead and he wants to be like his father. I like that. And I like all the worms. Very much a gross out episode, but I like it for that. Not that gross out thing my favorites in Goosebumps, but it's overall just extremely gross. And I'm not even grossed by worms to begin with. I think they're just worms. They don't gross me out too much. This did. It really grossed me. Basically for episode 5, for episode 5 though, basically I have to agree with everybody. It's definitely like a transitional episode into arc 2, I guess you can say. Or the second act of the entire first 5 episodes was like, setting it all up, then we actually get into the actual climax of the show. We're starting to approach it. Definitely one of the weaker episodes, but definitely has some stuff going for it. I like Margot. I like how we can look literally into the past. I like the book concept where if you read the book, it makes you go into the past, see what's been going on. I like basically everything that was going on in the episode, but of course not as much as the other episodes. Just overall, very fine. Definitely a bit slower in my opinion, but yeah, interesting.
All right, so what would you say out of the first 4 episodes? Because episode 5 didn't have a title of the book; it wasn't about a book. What do you have any new favorites from the new show? Do you like some new episodes over the former counterparts or anything?
Go Eat Worms. I like the new Go Eat Worms more than the book and the old episode, if I'm being completely honest. I really enjoyed the old episode. I thought it was great, but I thought this new version of the Go Eat Worms giant worm monster, I'll call it that, something about better. I thought it was more interesting how the worms built up, and of course, the dynamic between Margot and Lucas was good, even if it was kind of weird and there's some questionable stuff going on. If you really look into it, how it might, their parents are having sex with each other, and if that goes anywhere, since Margot and Lucas are in love, I'm just gonna let your minds explore that concept. It could get very, very interesting. Besides
As
that,
long as she doesn't get stuck in a washing machine.
Oh no!
Oh, that's gonna get cut out of the podcast. Let's go.
Wait, what was?
yeah,
All right, we might leave it in. We might leave it in just because of the walls. All right, so let's pass it around. Anybody who wants to hop on, what do y'all take away from these first 4 episodes? Do you like anything more? Do you think they did better here than the former counterparts?
It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, really, because like the original episode of The Haunted Mask is such an iconic. It's the best episode of the original show. But I like the narrative choices of the new one more, but I would still say the first episode's the best. But then we go to Say Cheese and Die. It's a better episode, but I like what they did with it. I like the Ryan Gosling performance more than this one, but I like what they did with the camera more in this one. Cuckoo Clock of Doom is straight up better than other iterations. It's more interesting, it's more compelling, and it's a better character. And then same with Go Eat Worms. It's a better character, more interesting, more compelling, actually creepy. And I think it's interesting because it really is, if you're, I hope this isn't the whole show, but it seems like if you're adapting a big popular name or a big popular book, then you have less ability to experiment with it without people getting mad. But when it comes to the 2 books that no one really likes in the original series, they did something really interesting and it turned out really well. So I think it's all about expectation. Like clearly the 2 books based on, or the 2 episodes based on the 2 kind of lackluster books were better than the ones that were based on the popular books, because there is that fondness there. I don't know. I think they did a good job though with a lot of stuff, but some of it depends on what angle you take when you're looking at it, because every version of this has good elements. It's just what elements you prioritize over the other elements, I'd say.
Yeah, good, very good points, Becca. BD, what do you have to say? What do you think about these first 4 episodes? Do you like anything more than the previous?
So, Go Eat Worms, I'd say, is better than both iterations of the story. So, it's better than the book. It's better than the episode. So, they did probably the most stellar job there. I think the Cuckoo Clock episode in the new show is better than the episode in the old show, because the Cuckoo Clock episode is from the old show, is the most recent one that I watched, and it's pretty weak compared to the book. So, this new version's a lot more creative and better.
Yeah.
That's my opinion
True.
with it. But compared to the book, I'm a huge fan of the book. I think it's one of the funniest Goosebumps books, at least in terms of comedy. So I enjoyed that one. I enjoy the book more than I do the new version. Say Cheese and Die, no, not better than Ryan Gosling or the book. Haunted Mask, not even a competition regarding the old versus the new. And then the hardest one is Reader Beware, because it's like you compare a 25-minute episode to a single blurb on the back of a book. It's tough. That's a hard contest. But I might have to give it to the episode just slightly. So
I don't know. Sometimes they shake it up with the blurb. They're like viewer beware or gamer beware. Or...
Right. And then in the GYG they add like glitter and stuff. So it's tough. But you know what? The new show, you did a better job than the blurb. So
as soon as 2000, they go for a harder font, a scarier font.
Spongy and Bruce, do y'all want to chime in?
All right, go. All right, go for Shaking and Die. It would be easier to compare if they spent more time on that part. But what we did like it. I feel like. Yeah. Okay. Forgot about that. But if they expanded on it, I probably would have like put it above the book or like a par, but because it got shortchanged. But I like the character of Marvin Gregg. I thought what we do kind of cooler than some stuff in the book. If it was like more of it, it would have been competition. Then I could have got the game book and original episode a bit more. Haunted Mac, yeah, we'll give it Ku Klux Doom. About the Game League, like I prefer. I mean, for one, the book had the quantum abortion automatic point there.
Yeah.
But about on par. Because the book, I think of the episode, I don't like more than the episode. That episode, I think it's better than the book, and it's one of my favorite episodes of the old show. Because of all the camp in it. But I think about the game. They're different enough to where I can't really compare them that hard. So, Go White Worm, the new episode cleared again, the book, and the original episode, I think, is good. So I think 2-time T. Ryder could have made better version, but I would say so when it comes to the episode, the old episode about the Game League, I would say. And Fear Beware, not being telebook, so whatever. Go back, kind of what I think.
And Bruce, have you had a chance to go yet? All right, what do you think, bud?
So for Say Cheese and Die, obvious winner for me, book and episode, is the original, because first of all, the book is my third favorite Goosebumps book in the OG series, fourth in all of Goosebumps, and also the episode is my favorite Goosebumps episode.
Perfect timing. Okay, that was good. That was pure gold.
Haunted Mask, I think this is obvious. Old. I mean, even if I really like the Haunted Mask, it's just not possible to beat that classic. In my opinion, book and episode wise, not my favorite neither, but it's the best. It really is. It's the best Goosebumps book, best Goosebumps episode. It's done the best, it's made the best, written, everything. So then you move to Cuckoo Clock. I'm not kidding. I'm also going to say old. I think the book and the episode's one of my fan favorites, actually, are way better. I love Cuckoo Clock. I think it's one of the better episodes of this show, probably second best. But can't beat the classics. And then everyone's going to hate me. But I'm going to say Go Eat Worms. Old. It's
What?
It's gonna be old.
Even with that shitty ending of the episode where it's like
You mean that great ending?
it's funny, but it's way too ridiculous.
Absolutely adored that action scene, the chase, everything. I love chase scenes. Honestly, my favorite thing in life maybe just be chase scenes. I'm actually serious. So yeah. So take away that chase, though. That's only like 5 minutes, I'm going to say. Oh, I'm going to have to go old because Todd is just such a massive W. I honestly, okay. Todd, let me just say, is the most underrated character in all of Goosebumps. And he is very underappreciated and he's very relatable, even if I'm not at all like him. And top 10 mains, maybe even top 5.
Todd's an absolute fucking Chad, isn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Todd is
Todd's just a league of his own. He's just so. I don't know if he's like intended to be this awful, but
idiotic.
He's like the textbook, like just horrible written Goosebumps protest.
He's the textbook of what Rob Zombie was saying Michael Myers was. You know what I mean? Where of course they start out by torturing worms, and then they start out by if Todd survived swimming, he probably would have killed a bunch of people. He would have been the next Dahmer. Like
That's true. I've always said that. I'm like, him and Ricky are going to be like the serial killers.
They are.
If they got to live to be adults.
Yeah.
That's how they start. They take it out on animals first, and then they work.
That's what I'm saying. So him, and there's probably a couple more I could think of. The guy from the camp book in Series 2000 that's like literally like harassing people. Like they're probably the worst people ever in existence in this franchise.
I don't know. Have you ever read Revenge R Us?
That's what I'm talking about. That one.
Oh, that
Revenge
one.
R Us.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
what
with
is
the
it,
guy
Micah
that's
you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a weirdo guy. Like they could team
Mika.
up and be like the worst protagonists in the world.
All right, because clearly this show should just be doing the bad book. They do Adventure Run, they can make magic out of it.
Exactly. I'm like, if they can turn Go Eat Worms good, why not adapt Legend of the Lost Legend or
Chicken
some of the weaker
Chicken.
books?
Yeah.
You know?
Come
Let's go
on.
Chicken
Okay,
Chicken.
can I please say my piece? Go Eat
Alright.
Worms is fantastic. It has some of the best story writing, some of the best horror, action, everything. I was on my toes that whole book, and honestly, I think it has the best climax of all Goosebumps. It
Mhm.
really
Oh my-
does.
Here's what I'll say. What's probably scarier is how poorly R.L. Stein wrote Monster Blood 4. That's probably scarier, I would say. How poorly written that book is. I don't know. It's interesting. The worm analogy is interesting, but I feel like it'd be scarier if it was scorpions or spiders. You know what I mean? Like there's scarier creatures in the world than worms. I don't know. We should all eat a worm next episode on
Oh.
live. Do it. Let's do it.
I
Yeah.
got Carly back.
Cat from Long can do it.
You can put it in the sandwich if you want, and then pretend you don't know it's in there. Like it's. But no, going
All right, so
your
all right.
your goosebumps.
So we talked about the first 5 episodes, our thoughts. We talked about what we think is better, but now we can segue into the final thing. We've kind of run this over, but we might as well just keep it going. So this new Goosebumps show
Mhm.
and Are You Afraid of the Dark have kind of come into a pendulum of sorts. They're kind of rotating around each other. This past month in September, Are You Afraid of the Dark, who I think is considering doing a season 4 on their Nickelodeon show, they came out with a podcast, a graphic novel, and a book line that's supposed to go at least 5 books from what I've gathered. I think the second book is supposed to be authored by, I don't know if Spongy pulled it up in the Discord chat. I forget her
Gene
name.
Kuntz.
Danielle Valentine.
Danielle Valentine, okay.
Right.
And that book I think is supposed to come out in July of next year. So Are You Afraid of the Dark's coming out. They have a book line here by Amulet Books. It's a 5-book line as of now. These are really good quality hardbacks, like the Slappy Beware books, or something like Slime Doesn't Pay that Stein put out recently. They're pretty expensive, but they're really thick, well-written books, and they have different authors each one. They're not held down to just one author in the name of one author. So you get a variety of different stories here from different authors. And the same thing goes with Witch's Wings. And this one is told from the perspective of a different Midnight Society who has I guess Latino origins. Like she's heard these stories.
So it's Latin horror. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
So these are stories adapted from Latin folklore. And they've made 3 stories, horror stories in this, and the art is done by different artists, but you can see some art in here. So they're coming out with some really high quality, well-made books here, and they have a podcast. Which, if you're in the Discord, when we discovered that, I went ahead and I was like, let me make sure everybody can get some podcasts here. So I put a link in the Discord for everybody to go check it out, and they have about 5 original stories in the podcast for this season 1. On Audible. It's an Audible premium, though, so you have to buy a subscription or get a subscription to listen to it. But they're pretty decently long podcast stories. And what's the beauty about all of this is that you get original stories in this and the book line. You get original stories in the podcast. So it's essential that you experience it all, right?
Yeah.
So all this is going on. Goosebumps just came out with a new show. Disney, everybody's been so hyped. Right now, it's so hyped to be a Goosebumps fan. Because we have this
Unless
new show.
you're in the Reddit.
unless you're in the unless you're in the Reddit. But if you look at it like this, we got House of Shivers. We got the new
That's
House
true.
of Shivers series. This is the book line that's putting out new stories, and the new TV show is taking liberties with older concepts
Making
and
new
turning them
stories.
into something different, right? But when you look at the comparison, because this is all so early on. This has only been going on for about a month, right?
Mhm.
When you look at the comparison of what Are You Afraid of the Dark has done into the market, and you look at all the exposure of different content, different mediums of content, even though they haven't been the greatest at advertising this stuff, they don't have the issue of R.L. Stine and the brand of R.L. Stine holding it back because he's an 80-year-old man these days.
Yeah.
He has other projects he's working on. The TV show, he had no involvement with this new TV show other than I think he gave a thumbs up to it. And
He
said,
liked
hey,
it. Yeah.
He liked it. He gave it a thumbs up, but he said, "Have at it."
Yeah.
So he's been hands
He's
off
too
with the
busy
new TV
making
show.
that Zombie Town movie that no one liked.
If you haven't seen that, maybe we can talk about that at another time. But oh my lord.
Here's the thing. If Are You Afraid of the Dark wants to win, all they need to do is put a 14-plus anthology show where you take all these different cultures' ghost stories and you tell them in unique, interesting, modern ways on Paramount Plus, they would win 100%.
Yeah.
And then,
I was about to segue to that. I'm like,
remake Dead Man's Float. They could remake Dead Man's Float as a 14-plus thing. That'd be the scariest shit ever. They just got to do that. If they do that, then they win the battle, 100%. They're the better show.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Paramount Plus, right? When I'm talking about this new war, right now, Goosebumps just has House of Shivers, and the Disney Plus show, and I think they're bringing back Goosebumps graphics next year. But that's about it. I don't think there's anything else slated for Goosebumps content-wise. The only new
Why are they
content
not re-releasing? Why are they not doing classic re-releases with
they are doing that. They're doing Go Eat Worms and Cuckoo Clock of Doom, and they're apparently another Haunted Mask 2.
That's
I don't know
cool.
why.
Okay.
And they're also doing audiobook for Vogue, and they announced an lifting from audiobook for Dummy Free. Go, you Dummy Free friend, have at it.
Okay.
If you haven't listened to those dummy audiobooks, man, BD Horror knows all about those. but here's what I'm saying. Like, content-wise, Goosebumps' strategy is kind of peculiar in this situation because looking at it from like a history perspective, R.L. Stine has dominated kids' horror since about 2007, historically. When I call the silver age of kids' horror, back when the golden age ended when series 2000 and the OG, I guess the revival seasons of Are You Afraid of the Dark.
I would say he dominated before that though, because I would say that other things came out, but Goosebumps was dominant. I would say it was dominant in the 90s and the early 2000s and a little bit.
It definitely was.
Because that's when I got into it, when I was like 7 or 8. But what I'll say is what I've noticed is after the show died down, before the movies and about before Horrorland or so, or maybe mid-Horrorland, I think that their strategy got really weird because the hype wasn't there anymore. And I think the hype officially died a little bit after Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween that I even saw in theaters, and my whole family left going, that was absolute trash. But we liked the first one. After that, I think the hype died. I think that after that, there was no Goosebumps was a dead horse at that point, but they somehow revived it just now in a decent way. But I would say that a lot of things have creeped in, whether that be creepypastas, whether that be any other types of horror stories. Other forms of horror stories have creeped in the time where Goosebumps was not prominent, whether I think that's like 2008 or 9 to like 2014 and then 2015 to now, those brief pockets, they've been able to do it where I don't think Goosebumps knows what they're doing anymore. I think that they realize they are not the fad they used to be, and they're trying to market around it, but they're not sure what they want to do because they're not prepared for this modern era of tales. Because it's all internet horror now. It's all internet horror, but how do you do that in a Goosebumps form? It's kind of hard, you know.
And just to add to that, where the Haunting Hour show, when Horrorland was out, Haunting Hour came out a few years later. And I think Haunting Hour became extremely popular because they weren't tied down to R.L. Stein.
It was just books. A concept.
It was just a concept, and you can have writers go in there and contribute brand new content. It was brand new.
And they did some crazy shit. They did some crazy shit in that show, and they took risks. So that's...
And Are You Afraid of the Dark's old concept was pretty much the same thing. They were not tied down to books. Like, and you know, when people say about this new show, why couldn't it have been an anthology? I can understand the flip side of that is because Goosebumps would be tied down to just former existing content. They're not bringing anything new. So that's the delineation that I think moving forward, because I think it'll get very interesting very quick. If Are You Afraid of the Dark got like a, I don't know, maybe like a Paramount Plus movie or maybe a spin-off anthology show.
They need to. Dark. Because Paramount Plus has nothing right now that people care about. The biggest thing would be, other than, I guess, Good Burger 2 is coming out, and that's going to bring some people be like, oh my God, Good Burger 2. But they really need to jump into those old Nickelodeon, old this and that. They tried with iCarly, but they failed because they misunderstood, and Zoe 101, because they misunderstood the fan base there. But I think that if they want to, just make a 14A show where you do really spooky ghost stories that are actually terrifying, like what the 90s... Well, because everyone remember... I wasn't in the 90s, but everyone that tells me about it was like, yeah, you had Goosebumps, and then you had Are You Afraid of the Dark? You had Goosebumps, which was like, ooh, we're creepy, and then Are You Afraid of the Dark? That was like, this is fucked up. And I feel like if they can play into that, they would fucking... They could dominate if they played
They
into
could
that.
Totally blitz the market if they did that. And Goosebumps will be outnumbered. Because Stein is only one person, and all the books are contingent.
And Are You Afraid of the Dark is a round table of people thinking up the most fucked up ghost stories they can. Like, that would totally...
See, my idea would be like if they went like the Creep Show direction, and they did more schlock, mixed with more serious ghost stories, some more heartfelt stories, maybe rooted in some more
creature
urban legends.
features. Yeah,
they have the whole canvas to their disposal with the Goosebumps anthology. Even if this would happen and Disney Plus try to answer with Goosebumps, you would still be met with the blockade that is you have to be adapting the books.
It has to be an R.L. Stein book, even though a lot of the original books, as we figured out over time, were not R.L. Stein, really. I think that it still has, it's the name. It's like Stephen King. It's like having Stephen King's name. It's a King thing, and everyone judges it that way. But when you have that fluidity of a real anthology where you could just let people come up with ideas, I feel like a lot more comes out of it. That's why, frankly, the only real good anthology show that ever existed was the original Twilight Zone, was because you brought these smart, intelligent writers on and directors to tell these really captivating tales of suspense. And they were not anchored down by the fact that it had to all be Rod Serling, or with the new Jordan Peele one, it was like Jordan Peele has to be attached somehow. Like they just had these tales. And if they could do that with Are You Afraid of the Dark, they could genuinely come out with a show on par with that old show, probably even better with our modern technology and the modern types of horror that we find ourselves falling into. It could be really creepy and really good. They just have to execute it properly.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest strength to Are You Afraid of the Dark right now too is that Goosebumps basically wrote itself into a corner with the movies, because the movies were basically just nostalgia bait. They were just trying to do Jumanji and include all the creatures, which is good for a first film. But if you make a sequel that doesn't have enough material to captivate readers,
it doesn't have the monsters either. Like none of the monsters.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not really doing its job of converting people from the movies to the books as well as the first movie was doing.
Yeah, and then Are You Afraid of the Dark, on the meanwhile, is doing anthology, is writing its own stories, and it has a bunch of different creative writers. And now that we have Creepshow on Shudder being the #1 biggest show, and we have Creeped Out, which is also bringing back anthologies, being super popular.
Cool. Yeah.
So now it's back to being cool. So you have all these creative writers and people doing different stories, but if you try to focus on Stein reusing a bunch of ideas because he's openly said on interviews he's ran out of ideas, and you see it within his new.
All of these new series is all I've noticed is that they're repetitions of old books, which
Yes.
I felt like there's got to be a point where people just stop fucking reading, because if he's just going to keep doing the same stories, then I feel like, for me at least, when I look at the books, I stick with Series 2000, Give Yourself, the OGs, and maybe some Horrorlands, but I never read anything past there because I just felt like it started to get generic. There was no intrigue as much anymore. And I think it is because you have a guy who maybe he's not writing the ideas, because I think a lot of ideas are given to him and he revolves around those. But like, he's writing all these books, and there's a point where you're a writer, he's written hundreds of books at this point, you start to get stale. And I think that is what's holding up the franchise, is that it's gotten stale. It's gotten really stale. If they got more writers, which this show is doing, they got more writers to come up with these new spins, like just adapt the old books. Give us a Shocker on Shock Street episode, but spin it. Maybe make it a satire message about Hollywood and big blockbusters or something. Like, take these stories and do what they already did. Tell new ideas that are relevant, that everyone could sit there and say, wow, that's deep and powerful. And they should be fine, but they just have to work out the kinks. Probably people who don't like season 1 will probably love season 2, because I feel like at that point they'll be like, okay, we get it now. We're just going to adapt these books, but not actually adapt them, but kind of make them their own. It's like a new version or take on it. I think people will love it if it gets to season 2. I think they'll really kick into gear with that concept.
Yeah, and I think a season 2 would bring some innovation, because right now we're just seeing this balloon, because Viacom is starting to put some legitimate stock into Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
I mean, we could see the presence there now.
Mm-hmm.
So you've seen this bubble starting to form. We're now in a bubble.
Disney's got to catch up.
Bubble.
Yeah.
We're now in a new one. We don't know how big it's going to get. We don't know if it's going to pop, if all these shows just all of a sudden start getting canceled left and right, if book series fall flat.
Yeah.
But I will say the biggest hurdles for Goosebumps, one, is Rob Letterman over in Sony openly saying that he's only interested in doing this type of show, which is kind of pigeonholing creativity to this. And the second thing is R.L. Stine being the only author creating new content book-wise. Really, I think that we've already talked about this in the Discord, that we would all be open to maybe a helping hand. Maybe if Disney wants to compete, or Scholastic wants to compete, and they want to make a new book series, have it be the first series that R.L. Stine just has his name on the cover, but it's ghostwriters. Like, have them write the content.
You know what would be cooler though? I feel like they should take his name off entirely of a new series. What they should do, let's say 20 books in a year and a half. It could be quicker than that, because if you have other people writing, you could get them out quicker. What they should do, they should get a bunch of different writers to tell their own Goosebumps tale, and do a series where it's just focused on these people telling the stories and doing these new original ideas, and take R.L. Stine out of the equation, because maybe they could phase it out where, let's be real, R.L. Stine's 80, he's going to die soon, probably. Like, he's getting older. So what they should do is they should phase it to being a series where you bring other people into the room and you have them tell their tales, and maybe in that scenario they could actually build an interesting book series with a bunch of interesting new voices in horror and youth horror, because there's a lot of people who, let's be honest, if they were given the chance and like, okay, we're doing a new Goosebumps book series and they want you to write one of the entries, I know I would. I know everyone would. They jump the fuck right on it. They'd be like, yeah, let's do it. And that's what they should be doing, because if you want to keep it fresh, you got to inject it with new life, new younger voices who know horror that is relevant to this modern time, and tell something actually spooky because that's the thing. You have an 80-year-old trying to talk to. It was different when he was, in his 40s and his 50s, trying to talk to 90s kids. But now you're in such a different technological world. he can't really relate as much. So just get young 20, 30-year-olds who are writers to come in, write their own books, do a 25 book, 30 book series or something, and have everyone be a different person. And that would get them, that would get them love from everyone, not even just Goosebumps fans, just people who are just genuinely interested in the genre would be like, that's cool and that's awesome. That's what they should do, frankly.
Does anybody else
Yeah.
have anything they want to add?
Yeah, come to our favorite dark. I don't know if y'all seen the reboot show, but I have, and I think it is very well made and and very well crafted enough. Where Ray did it with the crew, particularly did it in anthology. They genuinely without chance complaining with dry water. I genuinely believe that with the talent on the play. And D.T. McHale, again, like super involved, but he does like the new show. He does think they should try anthology again. So he and Goblin get that. So. Yeah, and I do have to agree with Phil because the talent is absolutely there. Yeah, JT Billing is the show more between 2 and 3, and he was hoping for season 4, and he had an idea. He don't know if it's gonna happen, but he was hoping because he's very passionate about ritual community and about tapping into what kids are into. So I'm hoping our favorite dark can take advantage of what they have.
Yeah. They have untapped resources with Paramount Plus. They have not tapped into, and that could be their secret sauce. They already got they already got Audible. They already have the books, the book line, the graphic novels. They got the Nickelodeon show, but they have Paramount Plus just sitting there like a majestical stage.
And Paramount Plus needs it as much as they need Paramount Plus, I would say. Like Paramount Plus is not surviving right now on their let's see a Paramount movies after the theaters and once in a while we'll get an original. They're not doing well with that. From last time I saw the numbers, they need something like this to boost people into wanting to get Paramount Plus. It's an answer that I think I'm baffled that they haven't even tried yet, because you would assume that a studio would be like, oh, let's try everything. We own this. But they haven't tried this yet. I don't know why. You would think that a big money hungry company would, but they haven't put their toes into this yet to try it. But
hey, Bruce, hey, Bruce, I think you wanted to say something. Hey, Spongy, do you have something else you want to say?
But it came out of the audio thing. Arnstein had the Arnstein Story Club or call it that, which is like audio story, some of which she'd written, some of which of other people. And I think that's cool. And all you do is just slap a Goosebumps label on that, and you have it for free, like it is now. Then you can ping it for the audio stuff. Hey, you have to pay that, but we're free. I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, like a free Goosebumps like audio podcast where you get like exclusive Goosebumps stories. You make people, you're giving people new story content at least. So yeah. Bruce, you said you wanted to say, you had something to say, and I'm sorry we kept having to cut you off, bud. What you got to say, bud?
It dates back to the 1800s. No, I'm just kidding. So back to what happened, like, I don't know, 20 minutes ago at this point. I was just gonna add on that I've basically barely read any of the books past 2000. I think, like, I read a few when I was a lot younger, when I was just getting into Goosebumps, since they were easier to get, obviously. So maybe 1 or 2 Slappy Worlds. I remember I read a few Horrorlands. That was the ones I remember. But I could definitely see more creativity coming out of the original series as I've been reading through it. You know, I'm like halfway so far. And every single book, besides a few sequels, and there's also some ones that just take inspiration from others, there is some wild ideas out there, like Why I'm Afraid of Bees. I would never want to read that book, and somehow it was great. While I look at the newer books, and it looks sometimes wild, like, I don't know, Judy and the Beast, and I go, that looks ugly, not reading that. Like, and I don't think it was good either. Most people say that it was not good. So, and that was one of the ones I read. I didn't think it was great. So I will say that the OG series, including other books too, like Egg Monsters or Beast from the East, it really switches it up. And speaking of those two, they're just back to back. So really,
that's true. Egg Monsters goes hard. That's a good book. I remember I read that when I was in I think I was in grade 5. That was when I got reinvigorated after Goosebumps scared me when I was younger. Grade 5, grade 4 or 5, I was really getting into them again. And I read Egg Monsters and I was like, this is a crazy tale. And it still is. I would even say as an adult, I'm like, that's still a crazy book. I wish, and I feel like that's true. I've not read the new stuff, but I've heard everyone talk about it. I've watched the reviews on YouTube, whether it's Completionist or Michael or anyone talking about it. I listen to them, and it just seems like there's a spark or there's an inspiration that was in the 90s of this, and I think it's because the fandom, the pull isn't as big. Because in the 90s, you're pumping out books, you're like, people are loving them, you're like, I have this idea, you're on the high of just, it being super popular. I think that there's something missing there, and I think it's because he's older now. Like, he doesn't really care as much because he has his legacy. He doesn't need to make more books if he doesn't want to.
He has nothing left to prove.
People will always remember the OG books and how it literally changed media and kids like entertainment for the rest of eternity. Like, people are going to remember that, so he doesn't have to output, so he doesn't feel like he has to. And that's why I feel like we only see 3 books a year now, is because he doesn't have that pep anymore, and it's because he's older and he doesn't care as much anymore. And if that's the case, they should just give it to, as I was saying, a bunch of writers who would love to do a book or two, give them that, and you could probably get that flash of inspiration and charm and wildness that's a part of the first 2 series will come back if we get other people involved.
Yeah. One last thing before I turn it over to BD and Alex, and then we try to close this out. The content we're using in Modern Goosebumps, if I'm being honest, it was done back then. It was done in Series 2000. You saw a lot of recycled concepts going on there. And even in Are You Afraid of the Dark? I mean, Spongy brought this up the other day. There's 3 episodes like each other, like Jake the Snake, Vacant Lot, Dark Dragon. They're pretty much the same story. I mean, reusing story concepts is so common in these big franchises, these long-running ones. These things make it over 50-plus story content. The knockoffs in the 90s probably at the most got to book 35 and then died in the water. So, when you're looking at the big 2, I think what the real results are going to be in this new bubble is content exposure. I know that Goosebumps has better advertising and has more hype, but the problem with that is that if Are You Afraid of the Dark comes out with more content, producing more content, and people become more aware of it, then what's the hype worth? What do you got to fall back on if the hype dies on the show? You just got House of Shivers. Goosebumps is dead, right? And I want to turn it over to BD and Alex to see what they think about that. BD, what do you think about all this? You have anything else you want to add?
So main thing that I kind of want to see Goosebumps do is get a little bit of inspiration from Creepshow, because the thing that I've been waiting for Goosebumps to do is to make a Creepshow kind of comic issue where they have 10 anthology stories in it, because we've had comic adaptations of Goosebumps stories in different magazines and stuff, but they never fully went through with making it into a comic series. So I think if you want to reinvigorate readers, start doing comics, start doing, like Spongy said, audio podcasts, new content, because that stuff will get readers more interested. If you keep going with the same formula, people are going to eventually get bored. And Stein has what, like 5-6 years, 10 maybe before he croaks. So Scholastic has to start thinking. It's messed up, but it's true. Scholastic has to start thinking about new directions and new material, which is what Disney's doing right now. Whether you like the Disney show or not, it's a new direction.
Because it is Scholastic's thing. That's the thing, is a lot of people are like, it's R.L. Stein's thing, but really, all in all, Goosebumps is Scholastic's thing. It's now partially Disney's thing. So really, it is, they need to start thinking about the game plan if they really want to. And you're right about that. The game plan in the future, if they want it to succeed, because it's going to get to a point where he's not around to do it anymore, and they will want to progress it because it's got that name and that palpability. They need to find out how to. And everyone's points were great about what they could do, because true, there's so many things that are untapped potential that they should do.
Yeah, I'm
I
totally
do
with
have-
BD on this because Creepshow, BD will attest to this.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. And Stephen
Mhm.
King and George Romero used to be tied at the hip with the first movie, but ever
Yeah.
since then, they've
Yeah.
gone on the
Now it's all
sideline and they
Greg
let Creepshow
Nicotoro's
become its
thing.
own thing.
Yeah.
They let it run,
It's
let
true.
it become what it is. So I think that would be the natural progression for Goosebumps at some point, is for Stein to step aside and let it
Yeah.
progress.
And another big thing, George Romero was gonna make a Welcome to Dead House movie. That's lost media. That will
Oh, I
almost
remember
happen.
that. Yeah, he was gonna do a Goosebumps movie, and it was supposed to be like actually scary, which would have been
Yeah,
so
so
cool.
that
Yes.
basically would have been the early version of what this Disney show is trying to do. We could have got George Romero working on Welcome to Dead House. That's a big avenue. And
And that would have been cool because he's the zombie guy. He could have done a really fucked up zombie like take on that. That would have been killer.
And before I
Yeah.
pass it to Alex, I think also I really hope that GYG episode in the Disney show does well because I think GYG should be adapted more because what you can do
Yeah.
is you can take a main storyline, start adapting GYGs because the good thing about the Give Yourself Goosebumps series is they have so much variety in
Yeah.
each different book. So you can hit everything that fans want. If you
It's
want a
true.
zombie story, you got Zombie School. You want robots, you got Creepy Creations. If you want Carnival, you got Carnival of Horrors. You got everything. So start adapting that.
It's
Just pick a
true.
main storyline, do it, and you got something that everybody likes.
Yeah. Here's my quick theory about that episode. Now that I thought about it, here's what I think it's going to be. GYG, they're probably going to play into the multiple possibilities element, and we're going to see all these monsters that are attached to other people or could be attached to other people. If they do that, that could be a really cool episode of someone might possibly have Fifi, another person might have the purple peanut butter, or they could play with other things like Cry the Cat or like Creature Tea. They could play with anything and they could say these are different possibilities like that. Because I feel like naming it that, obviously there's an intention seeing what they've done so far. Every name is important and crucial to the episode. So I think all they gotta do is just give us an alternate type episode where it's like they're seeing everyone else as possible monsters, and you could have like a plant dad or like something else. Like it could be cool. And if they do that, then kudos to them, you know?
Revenge
Yeah,
Horror.
Yeah,
All
give
right,
it to
Alex,
Goosebumps.
to close out, do you have any thoughts about this new Are You Afraid of the Dark Goosebumps 4?
Well, obviously, Goosebumps is gonna, for now, is going to take the lead. Whether it is still small in some ways, like there's only a new show, which Are You Afraid of the Dark already has, and it's gonna get a season 4 essentially, and book series, which is taking forever to come out with new books. I mean, the next book comes out in March, which is half a year away, so it's gonna be quite a long time. I think Goosebumps is still going to be in the lead for quite a bit, if anything. But if Are You Afraid of the Dark really gets out there and promotes the stuff that they're doing right now, and if people actually enjoy it, if it's actually perceived very well, like the new show, I think definitely not the greatest, definitely no better than the '90s stuff. I think it's pretty good. If it just keeps getting better and better, and it's consistent, it always has good stories, good characters. And obviously promoting, like I already said, if they really promote it, they can definitely maybe even overthrow Goosebumps a bit, just a bit. But yeah, basically that. Goosebumps for now is going to take the lead with the new show since it is very, very popular at the moment. I even hear teachers talking about it at school. I'm not even joking.
I think we're in a hype bubble right now for Goosebumps, and that will die down in a few months. You know, once after Christmas, it'll become a casual thing again until we get news about season 2.
Especially if they announce that there's no season 2. I think that would
just destroy Goosebumps.
it would kill the hype. I hope that in a couple months maybe we get an announcement of season 2, and then that could keep the car rolling of like the ride rolling of getting to that and the hype. But it really could go either way, and it all depends on if they get another season. But the fact that people are talking about it in public, I feel like that's a good sign that people are actually watching it. which
Yeah.
probably means that even if people are not big fans of it, if it gets a lot of views, Disney will 100% give it another season, knowing their strategy.
And
Yeah.
and to close out, I think we all agree that when it comes to this new show, regardless if we don't like it out there or we do like it, that we all should just be respectful and be a community.
Oh yeah,
And just realize that the show is good for Goosebumps in the sense that if it stays alive, we can get a lot more stuff out of it, like merch, maybe some more books. Because with competition, Are You Afraid of the Dark's coming in? You can see that bubble start to expand. You're going to see Goosebumps start to expand. You just got to be patient with it and just hope for the best. You know, you don't want to kill all the steam and get Goosebumps to get railroaded at this point. If you're truly that big of a fan,
true.
I feel like you should be trying to stay optimistic, even if you don't support the show. Just don't watch it. Let it keep going on, and then just enjoy what comes out of it, I guess.
It's true. It's like be a real fan. Don't be an asshole and treat people like shit on the internet. Not going to name any names, but just be a real fan and don't talk shit about people and you're fine. Like, I feel like that's the best answer to that.
Yeah, totally. We all had different opinions about some things, but we all got along as fans, and I think we did very good on this podcast, y'all. So to give y'all a little plug, I'm gonna put all of the panels here tonight. Becca, I'm gonna put her information down in the comment section in the description. So go follow Becca on her social media. I'm gonna put Spongy444's blog, his YouTube channel, and his Twitter account in the comment section as well. BB Horror, I'm gonna shout you out. I'm gonna put you on. I'm gonna put you in the comment section in the description. Same thing with you, Bruce and Alex. You guys have been awesome. I know we've been doing this for like 2 hours, very long podcast. But if you made it through, thank you for watching the whole episode. Episode 3, we have something in plan for the Halloween season to kind of wrap up the spooky season. We have a versus episode again, similar to the episode 1. I think we decided on one, y'all. We're doing Tale of the
Curious.
what was
Camp.
it? Midnight Ride.
Midnight Ride.
Oh.
And what are we facing it off against?
The Headless Ghost.
The Headless Ghost. Okay, so it's gonna be the Headless Ghost from Goosebumps. We're gonna talk about the book in the episode. Then we're gonna talk about the tale from the Midnight Ride. And we're gonna, just have fun and just talk about these 2 shows, because I think it's important to cross promote right now for good competition, healthy competition. Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark are making content, still releasing content, still making it for fans. So we try to be fair and transparent.
That's what's important. It's not a battle about who's better. It's just good that there's actual content coming out. That's the most positive element of it, that there's an outpouring of things.
And for the discussion, what do you think we should talk about next episode? I'm gonna give you all the floor. What do y'all want to talk about in terms of Halloween? You want to do something Halloween talk? You want to do?
I think this is an interesting take. I think you could do. I have 2 things in my mind right now that'd be interesting for a podcast discussion. One of them being things that remind you of Goosebumps, or things that you watched that were Goosebumps as a kid or as a young person that got you into horror, that are like notable other things that got you into the genre. Or you could just talk about, you could axe the OG 62 and just discuss what series is the best other than the OG 62, which series had the biggest impact on you that wasn't, because everyone would say the OG 62 if we put that in, but like you could take it away and someone could say Give Yourself, someone could say Series 2000, someone who's younger could be like, well, Horrorland was what was up when I was like. I think that could be because the first one relates to the Halloween idea, but the second one relates to the Goosebumps idea. So I think both of those would probably be interesting discussion topics.
All right, we could probably entertain one of those. I think we're going to keep it a surprise, though. We're gonna discuss it in the Discord and surprise you guys on the thumbnail when we drop it on Tuesday. Always going to drop the thumbnail early and then drop the episode on Thursday nights. Thank you all for tuning in. We love all you guys out in the community. Thank you all for supporting us, and we want to see you next time, and hope you tune in, and hope you have a great October and whatever. However you're feeling, y'all. I'm kind of running out of steam. We've been doing this for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, all right. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Oh my God, that was
Okay.
exhausting. 2 hours.
Oh, gee.
Is this?
Not
Oh,
back
is it done recording?
Yeah, I got it done recording.